minutes that Angela sent out for February 13th, 26th, and 27th, March 3rd through 6th, and 10th through 13th. And hopefully you've had a chance to review those and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out the minutes that you just stated favorably.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Dietrich. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Are there any bill introductions this morning? I don't think so. You never know. I have to ask. So we've got on your agenda, we're just going to kind of run down some of the bills that are outstanding and start working on that. And first up, we've got House Bill 2052, which is the one we heard yesterday, conforming the conceal and carry to allow for those provisional licenses to turn into regular licenses when they turn 21. I'll have Jason give us a quick overview.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2052 was the bill making various changes to the concealed carry statutes, cleaning up the references to the crimes that disqualify a person from obtaining a license to carry a concealed handgun was one amendment. There is another amendment, as the chairman referenced, the transition from a provisional license for persons who are under 21 to a standard license when they reach their 21st birthday, and the notification requirement by the Attorney General to notify that person that they are coming up on their qualification for a standard license. There were provisions in the bill amending the Attorney General's ability to enforce the law and require the surrender of a suspended or revoked license to the Attorney General with a penalty of up to $250 for failure to do so. And then finally, there was the amendment prohibiting any private owner operator of a building from requiring an off-duty law enforcement officer to identify themselves, provide personal information, or wear any other item identifying the officer as a law enforcement officer or as carrying a concealed handgun.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions? Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, would you please state the first amendment of cleaning up?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the first set of amendments in the bill are to 75-7C04 regarding the crimes which disqualify a person from obtaining a license to carry a concealed handgun.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we do have Senator Francisco. We do have an amendment on that. Yes, we sure do. And then we'll have Jason explain and see what questions we have. Thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready, Jason.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, these amendments, I believe, were requested by the Attorney General's office to clean up some discrepancies under the bill. The first one on page 4 is this is a cleanup from last year. Last year, there was a bill to provide uniform provisions whenever a state or national criminal history records check is required by state law. In doing so, certain language was struck from this statute, and so that language you see in the balloon of an inquiring of a national instant criminal background check system was language that was struck from the statute last year under that Uniform Act, and so that language is being reinserted back in on page 4. I believe this is for ATF compliance purposes at the federal level. The next amendment you will see is on pages 6 and 7 regarding the surrendering of a suspended or revoked license. These licenses are for practical purposes issued by the Division of Motor Vehicles, and so this language adjusts the requirements of the person would surrender their license to the Division of Motor Vehicles, upon which time it would be destroyed. If the license is to be reissued because the suspension period has concluded, then the Attorney General would issue an authorization document for the reissuance of that license for the unexpired portion of the term. And then because of those practical implications, you can also see that the fee for penalties is being stricken there on page 7 as well. And I believe those are the two amendments under this balloon.
That's all I see, yeah.
Yeah.
Committee, any questions? Senator Vascato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Jason, they're on page 6. So, still, when it talks about license, it just, why aren't we saying concealed carry license, or just making it more clear to what type of license?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, these statutes are solely within the concealed carry statutes, and so the only references to licenses under these statutes are to concealed carry licenses. This is not, all driver's licenses are covered under Chapter 8 of the statutes.
Okay, and then, Mr. Chairman, Jason, so who actually, what department, what division actually provides that license? So would the Attorney General or would that division be the one notifying or getting the information that they could then give the license back to that person who had it restricted?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the Attorney General is responsible for authorizing the issuance of any concealed carry license, including the reissuance after a license has been suspended or revoked. The Division of Motor Vehicles is merely an administrative processor because they have all the functionality to take the photo of the individual, apply it to the actual card, manufacture the cards and send them to the individuals, but all of the legal authorizations for doing so come from the Attorney General's office.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would move that amendment and seek a second. There's a second from Senator Clifford. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. We're back on the base bill. House Bill 2052. I'm not aware of any other amendments. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's my,
That's your cue?
no. Sure, I'll take that as my cue.
Okay.
So if you would indulge me, I would like to make a conceptual amendment on page 5, line 10, to strike by letter. And I feel empowered to do this because there's already amendments and it's going to have to be reprinted. This would still require the Attorney General to notify each person, but if there are alternate means, this would allow for that, and it certainly could be discussed at conference with input from the Attorney General's office itself.
It broadens the ability for them to notify. I think that's a good conception. Senator Gossage.
I would second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Strike by letter on line 10, page 5. So it'll just read, the Attorney General shall notify each person. So it doesn't have to be by letter, it can be email or whatever. Okay. We got a motion by Senator Francisco, second by Senator Gossage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Now we're back on the base bill. Any further amendments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on House Bill 2052 as amended. Senator Clifford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we would move House Bill 2052 as amended favorably.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Senator Gossage. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. That bill passes, and thank you very much, committee. Next, we're moving on to Senate Bill 234, and I'll have Jason give us a quick overview of that bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 234 was the bill prohibiting medical and research facilities in the state from using genetic sequencers and software for genetic analysis that is produced in or by a foreign adversary. For the committees, if they remember, foreign adversary is defined by specific reference to specific nations under the bill. And those would have to be replaced as soon as possible. There is a scheme for reimbursement for replacement costs if requests are submitted to the state treasurer by October 1st of 2025, and there are sufficient appropriations to reimburse facilities for replacing those sequencers and the software.
Thank you, Jason. Committee, any questions on that? I don't know if you had time to look at House Bill 2313, which we had discussed yesterday, the potential of possibly adding 234 into that bill. 2313 is a one-pager, and it is on prohibiting the use of artificial intelligence platform by DeepSeek, which is a Chinese AI platform. And I just threw it out there yesterday for the committee to consider, and I don't know whether or not the committee would consider putting that those two bills together, moving SB 234 into 2313. Senator Clifford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I took a good look at the other bill. You know, one, we're prohibiting use on state devices and networks to keep DeepSeek out because of the data collection by the Chinese. The other, we're prohibiting agencies to use these genetic sequencers because of the collection. So there is some uniformity, although the prohibition impacts slightly differently. You know, we're talking about medical institutions, universities, rather than KDHE, although they could have a sequencer there too. I was at the lab yesterday with some of you, and we didn't ask that question. So there's a slight technical difference that I don't know. We don't have a severability clause. I wouldn't want to lose either of these, so I'm a little cautious, but I'll go with the will of the committee.
Jason, any thoughts on adding a severability clause on that if we were to do that? I mean, obviously we could. That'd be our policy decision, but.
If the committee's concern is whether or not putting the two bills together would create two subjects in violation of the state constitution, I do not think a severability clause would cure that defect, as the bill in and of itself is unconstitutional as containing two subjects. And so I don't think a severability clause serves its purpose in that context.
Do you think we would have a conflict with putting these two together, potentially?
Because both bills deal with technology and the use of technology, and both bills deal with the provision of that technology by foreign countries, specified foreign countries, I believe there is a common nexus between the two bills that would make them single subject.
Okay. Senator Clifford?
And I'm quite okay with the advisor's description. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I would move that we remove the contents of Senate Bill 234 and place them into House Bill 2313. And is there a second on that? Question, Senator Tyson.
Should we make it a Senate substitute?
It would make it a Senate substitute. Yes, it sure would. Second by Senator Clifford. Any further discussion? Seeing Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be consistent for the day, I am going to object to the, as a no, to using 2013 as a shell, especially because we had no testimony on it.
Understood. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving, we have a motion And a second by Senator Clifford to move 234 into House Bill 2313. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? Okay, you may be recorded. And we'll move back on what is now the Senate sub for House Bill 2313. Any further discussion or motions? Oh, Senator Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we pass out Senate substitute for House Bill 2313 favorably. And
Oh,
allow the revisor to make any technical
Any
corrections.
technical corrections? Thank you. So Jason can sleep well at night. We have a second on that. Second by Senator Blue. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, the motion, and you want to record it also, Senator? Thank you. Okay, next we move on to our, what we're going to do here is take a look at Senate Bill 177 first, because there are amendments on that, and that is our campaign contribution limits, and I'll have Jason give us an update on that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 177 was the bill that amended the statute 25-4153 regarding campaign contribution limits. It increased those limits, basically doubling the limits for contributions to candidates. So for governor, lieutenant governor from 2,000 to 4,000 and so forth. It also created new law and new section 1 of the bill that provides that those limits would be automatically increased every 2 years based on the increase in the average consumer price index as determined by the Department of Labor. It also removed contribution restrictions on contributions to party committees and contributions to candidates of the same political party who are running in a primary election, and also contribution limits on individual contributions made to candidates.
And committee, before we open discussions, there is an amendment. We might as well go ahead and address that, I think, first, and then see where we go from there. And Jason, whenever you're prepared, give us a brief on this amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this amendment was referred to during the hearing on Senate Bill 177, so some of these changes may sound familiar. The first change is striking all of Section 1, so there would be no automatic increase to those campaign contribution limits under Senate Bill 177. The other change on the back side on page 2 is to impose limits on the aggregate amount contributed to a party committee by a person other than another party committee would be capped at $50,000 in each calendar year, and amounts contributed by a national party committee to a party committee would also be capped at $50,000 per calendar year. It would impose that no expenditures that are made by a party committee in support of a candidate with or without their cooperation or consent would constitute a contribution. So those expenditures on behalf of a candidate, not direct contributions to candidates, but we're talking about expenditures by party committees on behalf of candidates, would not constitute a contribution for purposes of these limits. And then there's language there in that subsection F that you've heard about on if you get contributions prior to an election, primary election date for general election purposes, that you can account for that separately and spend that for a general election later, as long as you follow one of the approved accounting methods specified there in that provision. And so that is the amendments for 177 under this balloon.
Okay. Committee, any questions on the amendment? Senator Falscadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, did you said that there would not be an automatic increase?
That is correct. That new provision would be struck under this balloon.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may be misunderstanding this, but in the balloon amendment, you raised that aggregate amount from 15,000 to 50? You don't think that's like a significant amount of money? Or even 25 to 50? Yes, no?
Yes, that raises it to 50.
Okay.
Yeah. Going in, so, somebody, it's a limit. I mean, we're updating, because of inflation and everything, since this has last been updated, increasing the amount that somebody could give to a party. Now, we're not talking millions of dollars, we're talking 50,000 on the front end, so it restricts the front end of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be a no.
Senator Falscadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that 50,000 could be given to the party, and then the party could spend it on both candidates if there were a primary?
I believe that is the case, Jason. I believe that is correct.
Or could they just spend it on that person they're supporting in the general?
Mr. Chairman, yes, the party could then expend those monies on behalf of a candidate without their cooperation or consent, or could make contributions to one or more candidates as it chose.
Any other questions? Oh, Senator Clifford?
Thank you
Yes.
for indulging me. And this is per calendar year. When we think about contributions as candidates, it's in cycles. And generally, certainly on our side of the aisle, which may not be unique, we don't get involved in primaries as a party. And I think this limit is healthy because it's offsetting what other organizations with less limits can do independently of candidates and parties. Parties have an interest in their candidates. And in my mind, this is general election money. Now, others may use their money in primaries, but we Republicans tend to stay out, and then it's a resource for the general election.
And in fact, this allows for you to collect that, both the primary and general. I believe that's within this bill, correct?
Yes, that's correct, as long as you account for it.
Yes, it allows you to have separate accounting for each race.
And again, playing the money game, and we'll see this in January of 26, folks will collect both primary and general contributions to puff up their account. So it's how the game's played, and it's legit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my experience with the Democratic Party is also that we don't usually make contributions. And during a primary, because I think some of this has to be not just a party, but actually the public determining who they want their candidates to be. So because of that, I am very concerned about eliminating that restriction.
On eliminating the restriction on
The party
the party.
to make, because even if they can't, this is allowing them to make expenditures, right, to send out postcards or do that. And it would make it very hard for an individual to enter into political office. So if we are worried about term limits, we're just in some ways helping make sure they don't happen.
Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we have two individuals on this committee that their party would have used that money to take them out. So, I mean, it can work against you.
Senator Frasco.
So, Mr. Chairman, and Jason or Clay or someone clarify, but my understanding, so in Sedgwick County, there's a primary. So the Sedgwick County Democratic Party, monies that have come in, they will allow, so if both candidates need to come to the office to use the printer or the postage or the services of volunteers to stuff envelopes, so they provide the same services to both candidates. So just clarify for me then, what additionally is this amendment allowing for them to give money? Because they don't give us money, until maybe the general, but during a primary, they will just, that money goes towards kind of both of us. So, so are we just increasing, what are we actually doing? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, with respect to primary elections in which there are two candidates for the same political party, the current law has limits on how much a party committee can contribute to those candidates during that primary election run. Those limits are being stricken under Senate Bill 177.
Committee, any further discussion? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a lot of heartburn over all this extra money going into this. And I guess I oppose that whole part of it, whether it's in this amendment or in the bill, underlying bill. I just not too crazy about it. And I'm probably going to be a no on all of it. I do like the increase in direct contributions to candidates. I think that's necessary. But after that, I think we're just asking for a lot of problems.
Any further comments, questions? Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Senator Murphy's comments, I mean, with Citizens United, I mean, this is a free speech issue. I mean, we don't necessarily like it, but and we risk being out of compliance or unconstitutional if we don't raise these limits. Messaging costs money. TV markets cost money. So again, the parties have a very specific interest in their candidate, and I think these are reasonable limits. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Gossage.
So just to clarify, I know this, I appreciate the fact we've had a lot of time to talk to various people about this, and trust me, I needed to do that on all of these campaign finance issues. But to clarify, this is not limiting PACs, because we know that PACs they have kind of an unlimited amount of money that can come into a PAC, right?
That is correct.
This is just the party itself.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have the amendment. Is there a second on the amendment? Second by Senator Clifford. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? No. I think it carries. So we're back on the base bill of Senate Bill 177. I would like to, and I don't know if we need to pass this one out before we insert it, Jason, into the other bill, or can we go ahead and insert? Okay. I think there is one conceptual amendment, and that would be changing this to, well, I don't know if we need to change it on the register on this one or on the combined. Quickly, we changed it to the register, yeah. There's a conceptual amendment on Senate Bill 177 as amended to change it to the publication in the register rather than in the statute book. Is there a second on that? Second by Senator Clifford. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. That carries. We're back on Senate Bill 177. Now, I would like to remove the contents of Senate Bill 177 as amended and add it to House Bill 2054. Do we need to give an overview on 2054 first, I think? Probably.
While he's doing that, Mr. Chair, I believe that I've done this too as a chair. I believe that we took a motion and had a second and voted on the conceptual amendment for the register, but haven't voted on the actual bill itself. Is that correct?
Oh, I think, so,
Oh, we don't need to? Because you're going to put it in something else. Okay,
Yeah,
my apologies.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2054 was the House position on these policy changes. It amends the same statute, 25-4153. It removes the exemption for party committees on contributions to candidates, increases the limits in the same amounts by doubling the candidate contribution amounts, but the House version did not provide for a bifurcation of local jurisdictions as the Senate bill does with respect to local candidates in jurisdictions of 50,000 people or more. It does remove the limits on contributions to party committees, and so there would be no limits on contribution to the party committee. It does include the language on only actual contributions to candidates can constitute a contribution. Expenditures that are made by a party committee on behalf of a candidate would not constitute a contribution. It also contains the same language regarding receipt of general election contributions and accounting for those separately from primary election contributions. It leaves in language on if a candidate does not run for election, contributions received still apply as though the individual had sought office. It also leaves in the language regarding limits on individual contributions to candidates, and it has an effective date of Kansas Register. My recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is if you were to put the contents of 177 into 2054, you strike the contents of 2054 and just insert the contents of 177 would be a lot cleaner for the Senate position.
I realize that now, so thank you. That would be my motion, basically, to take the contents of Senate Bill 177 as amended and delete the language from House Bill 2054 and insert Senate Bill 177 as amended. Okay. And then the register, the publication on the register is already in there. Okay. So so basically, 177 to be the Senate position. We have not. Yeah. So basically we're striking 20. Yeah, 2050 it gets convoluted. Striking 2054's language, putting what we just passed on the amendment 177 into it. So we have a motion by the chair, second by Senator Blue. Any further discussion? Senator Fausto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for further clarification, so are we, and I think I asked it before, automatically increasing the contribution that candidates could get? If not, are we increasing that at all?
Mr. Chairman, yes, the amount of contributions to candidates, those limits are all doubling under the amended Senate Bill 177. The automatic increase provision was struck by the adoption of the bill.
Correct. So we have any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Oh, this is on the Senate sub for House Bill 2054. Oh, okay. Into 177, yes. Motion to gut 2054 and insert 177. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? Sounds like the ayes have it. Okay, we're back on Senate sub for House. We can absolutely, we can do that. Yeah, it sounded like the ayes have it. So all those in favor of of that gutting of 2054 and inserting 177. All those in favor, raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe. Oh, okay, 5 to 4, so 5 to 5. Okay. In that case, the chair will break the tie, and we'll go on to that. So now we move to Senate sub for House Bill 2054. And any further discussion on that or motion? Okay. I would move that we pass out House Bill, or Senate sub for House Bill 2054. I don't think that's as amended, right? Okay. Do I have a second? Senator Clifford, second. Any further discussion? Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the work on this, but I will not be supporting this effort. I got to tell you, it just looks like pay to pay. We're increasing. The more money you have, the more voice you have. And what my constituents, my district is very, very grassroots, which I appreciate, and I think most of the state is. And so I don't support these efforts, and I'll be voting no today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Senator Gossage.
I prefer the Senate's position rather than the House position, so I will be supporting this.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, good to go. So now the motion and the second on Senate sub for House Bill 2054. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? I believe the ayes have it. It sounded like it. Recorded vote, no. Okay, no for, recorded for Senator Francisco, Senator Murphy, and Senator Tyson. Recorded no on that. Okay. That was painless. Now let's move on to, next, we're going to review House Bill 2206. And this is renaming the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission. And have Jason give us an overview.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2206, the bill came over from the House. First, proposes to change the name of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission to the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission. It amends the definitional section of the Campaign Finance Act to add a new definition of cooperation or consent for purposes of determining whether an expenditure is an independent expenditure for reporting purposes. It also amends the definition of political committee to strike the major purpose for expressly advocating or making contributions or expenditure language, and replacing that with a contribution dollar amount, so that a political committee is an organization or a group of individuals that has contributed or expended at least $3,000 in 1 year, and that is either has explicit documentation that its major purpose is express advocacy for candidates, or that the organization spends at least 50% of its total program spending on contributions or expenditures. And then the bill further expands on what is total program spending and how that is to be determined. It amends the reporting threshold for independent expenditures from $100 per year to $1,000 per year as a minimum expenditure for reporting purposes. And there's also a requirement that the report include the name and address of each person receiving payment in excess of $500 for an independent expenditure. Finally, the bill also amends the statute that generally prohibits making contributions in the name of another person, to prohibit any agreements or other conditions or stipulations that are placed on a contribution, that such contribution be subsequently contributed to another candidate, and defines contributions in the name of another. The bill passed the House of Representatives on a final action vote of 74 to 45.
Any questions on this bill? Senator Tyson?
I just want to clarify those last statements. So it would allow transfer of campaign donations from one campaign to another?
No, it specifically declares such agreements and conditions null and void.
Okay.
It's clarifying what is a contribution in the name of another to prohibit, to continue the statutory prohibition.
Thank you.
There's a lot of vagueness in the ethics statutes that this seeks to kind of clear up, basically, because there was a lot of interpretation, room for interpretation, and this kind of defines it a little more carefully. Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, was there a fiscal note on this? Because in changing that name, those handbooks and that we receive in the mail and all that information would need to be changed, wouldn't it? Thank you.
That was 2206. Well, there was an original fiscal note here. Reduced revenue, $10,000, what they're saying. It said the Governmental Ethics Commission states enactment of the bill would require agency to make minor changes to the logo. Primarily, that's it, and indicates fewer political committees would be required to register, which would reduce revenue to the fee fund by about $10,000. So it wouldn't be an actual expense. Well, they just reduced income to the fee fund, and that's all that they've got on there from 2206. Any further questions, discussion? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. I came straight from our financial institutions and insurance and institutions and insurance meeting, so I didn't pick up my information for Penn State. I know that I do have the question about the title, saying it's the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission, because I think that is broader than just disclosing campaign finance. So somebody could call. I know in the testimony that they said, well, we went back to a previous name for this committee. So to me, that means at some point they thought it wasn't good and it should be changed. So I had some notes about, local or government finance. I can't remember. And I'm wondering if any other committee members have ideas about what might be a better name for the committee?
I think the reason for proposing to go back for this is because if you get a subpoena from an ethics committee, it's like you can be completely innocent, but the interpretation by the public is, oh, they're being investigated by the ethics committee rather than the public disclosure committee. So it doesn't immediately indict you in the eye of the public, whether or not you've had any ethical violations. And I think that's part of the reason for that. And it was the original name, as I understand, which is why the concern and the reversion to the original name of the committee. So
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that, I think it's fine to change the name. My question is, are we changing it to something that wasn't working for them, right? And were there alternatives to that? Because I think it's sort of like, one person introduces a bill and all of a sudden there's no real discussion about what that committee should be called. And that's my hesitation, and I can leave the committee room and go get those.
I don't have any other names off the top of my head. Yeah, Senator Clifford.
I was struggling too. I thought it'd be the Government Political Corruption Committee. And we did hear from Ms. Bull Clark about them being a gathering place for general inquiry, so I thought this title was broader, and I'm quite happy with it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I think we would like to add the contents of Senate Bill 279 into this. Basically, it was they broke up the ethics bill into two separate bills, 279. I can have Jason give us a review of that and see if, I don't know if the motion's in order first to insert the consensus 279 into House Bill 2206. Just give a review of 279 first, and then we can go from there.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 279 creates new law regarding the interpretation of the Campaign Finance Act and how it's to be interpreted and enforced by the Governmental Ethics Commission. 279 also doesn't have the changes for the name of the commission, and so that would have to be conformed to the underlying policy of 2206. And those that new language basically spells out the authority of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission in interpreting the provisions of the Campaign Finance Act and adjudicating decisions by the commission on complaints for violation of the act. It also creates new law creating the, setting the standards for interpretation of the state governmental ethics laws by the State Governmental Ethics Commission and how to interpret and apply those provisions and adjudicate decisions on complaints filed for violations of the State Governmental Ethics Act. The bill also adds new language regarding when the commission can issue advisory opinions, and they would do so upon the request of a person to which the act applies on questions concerning the interpretation of provisions of the Campaign Finance Act. Shall be issued in writing and only upon the receipt of such request. That same language is also made applicable with respect to advisory opinions under the state governmental ethics laws. The bill also amends who is eligible to serve on the State Governmental Ethics Commission. Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, I don't have a brief on this bill, so I'm having to read the bill as I go through it.
All right.
There were, I believe, restrictions on who can serve that are being eliminated, but essentially, no member shall serve as a chairperson or treasurer of any candidate or committee that's subject to the provisions of Campaign Finance Act. No member shall actively solicit contributions subject to the Campaign Finance Act. No member shall be a lobbyist. No member shall be an officer or employee who directly participated in the making of a contract on behalf of a vendor of goods or services with the state of Kansas or any agency thereof. Those are all current statutory prohibitions. There's also, because there are prohibitions with respect to endorsing candidates for partisan political office, there are new definitions for partisan political office added to the bill. The bill amends the definition of expenditures under the Campaign Finance Act to exclude news stories, commentary, and editorial distributed through broadcasting stations, newspapers, magazines, and other periodical publications. Also excludes certain internet communications from being expenditures. Excuse me. And the bill adjusts some reporting thresholds up from $50 to $150 throughout the Campaign Finance Act. The bill amends the statute on attributions for communications to remove the requirement to provide the name of the chairperson or treasurer of the political or other organization sponsoring the publication where applicable. Let's see. 58, This is, any subpoena or subpoena duce tecum issued pursuant to the section shall expire and be invalid 6 months from the date of issuance unless an order to enforce a subpoena is issued by the Shawnee County District Court prior to that date of expiration. And the bill provides any subpoena that was issued by the commission prior to July 1 of 2025 is declared invalid by law upon the effective date of this act. And then that was the advisory opinion for the.
Jason, I'm looking, I don't think, we didn't have a hearing on this, did we? Let's not do this then.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Jason. I'm just looking to, for some reason I thought we had. So let's drop that. Let's just move on House Bill 2206. And is there any discussion? Yeah. Poor Jason. Questions or comments, Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there are some sensible things in House Bill 2206. I'm very concerned because we have lost significant leadership in the Ethics Commission. And so I think because of that, it's really hard to get good testimony during the hearing and understanding of what's happening and what things need to change. So because of that, I'm a little reluctant to make changes without having a staff that can say, here's where we're going, this is what we need to do, so.
Any other discussion? I think, and somebody would also argue at a time where there's a transition, now is the time to make that transition. So kind of on the other side. Senator Blue?
I think, Mr. Chair, are you ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion. Yes.
I move that,
Senator Gossage.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I move that we pass out House Bill 2206 favorably.
Okay. We have a motion by Senator Blue, second by, do we have a second? Second by Senator Gossage. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, I think the ayes have that. Next. Let's do it. Senate Bill 1, the very first one, daylight saving time. We got a couple minutes left. And see what the committee wants to do. I'll have Jason give us it is confusing every time I read it, so I'll have Jason give us a quick overview.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Early in the session. Senate Bill 1 is the bill that would have the state go to permanent standard time as of this November 2025. And then if the federal law changes and imposes permanent daylight saving time at any point in the future, then the state would revert to daylight saving time as required under federal law.
And we do have an amendment on that, I believe. And, I don't think Jason has, but basically the conceptual amendment would be that we would not go to permanent standard time unless Missouri also did so. And so that would be my conceptual amendment. In other words, it can clear up the conflict of cross-state lines on one of our biggest metro areas in the state. So we'll first move the amendment, see if there's a second on that. Second by Senator Blue. Any discussion? Senator Gossage?
I just want to clarify, because I think the confusion of this is I received a lot of emails about it saying, yes, do this. We need to keep standard time. I'm like, yeah, well, that's not, we're not allowed to do that, right? By federal law, we can't do that, but we can keep daylight savings time.
No, we can keep, it's reversed.
flip.
We can keep standard time
You can keep standard.
unless the federal government decides to put everybody on daylight saving time.
Right now, it's voluntary.
Is right.
Correct?
That is, I
Sorry,
believe,
I just
Senator,
trying to-
Jason. Yeah, I'll let Jason explain it.
So federal law requires a switch from standard time to daylight saving time. States can elect to opt out of the daylight saving time switch and remain on permanent standard time year-round. And that's what Senate Bill 1 would do for Kansas starting this November in 2025. The conceptual amendment, however, would be to make that change conditioned on the passage in Missouri of the same law. So if
So it would just
Missouri would
stay.
opt out, we would opt out. But otherwise, yes, this statute's just going to
There
sit
until
there on the
Missouri
books
does.
until Missouri has an enactment, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Any further discussion? Senator Fasquedo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and I vaguely recall the testimony that Senator Titus gave, but what's the major benefit? I mean,
I don't know if Jason can, that's not a legal question, that's an
no,
opinion.
I hear, so,
Senator Francisco.
I would say health.
And that's, I think that's what we heard in the testimony. A lot of people didn't like the switch because it messed them up for a week or so, both on both ends of the spectrum, coming in and going out. Senator Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I still have clocks without the right time, disturbing my life. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? The amendment is the conceptual amendment to make it conditional upon Missouri. I think we have did we have a second? Second by Senator Blue, yes. Motion by Chair, second by Senator Blue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, we're back on the base bill. Senator Francisco.
Since conceptual amendments are in order,
Yes.
I would like to make a conceptual amendment on page 1, line 7, to change it to the Sunday of November 2026.
Okay.
And I think that that would, one, give Missouri a little time to take some action. This could remain as a Senate bill, and people could further discuss it in the House without having to make that change at that time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, with the adoption of the First Amendment so that the effective date of Section 1 is dependent on an enactment by the state of Missouri, I would do a conforming amendment in line 7 so that it would be Sunday of November following the effective date of Section 1, rather than put in a specific year.
I think that's a good idea.
I would like to make that my amendment.
Very good. Is there a second on that? Second by Senator Gossett. Any further discussion? On the amendment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. We're back on the base bill. Is there a motion? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that this bill be moved out favorably as amended and give our reviser leeway to make technical.
I think he'll need that. Do I have a second on that? Second by Senator Starnes. Any further discussion? Senator Tyson.
Mr. Chairman, this sounds like a simple deal, but it is not. And we are negating the people in western Kansas who are on mountain time. We took care of the Missouri side, but not the mountain time, Nebraska, Oklahoma. I know for a fact that Indiana used to stay standard time. And the Senate president there, I had a good discussion with him. They said one of the best things they could do for economic development for their state was to conform to what the rest of the United States were doing, except for Arizona and Hawaii. And so I understand it's a feel-good bill. I understand health. We would all like that, but I won't be supporting this legislation because of the far-reaching implications for the state of Kansas to change alone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Chairman, and I would kind of echo that. We're looking just like at Colby and Goodland within our same state, having an issue, let alone going into Colorado. So I think we all need, and I think the whole country needs to do it at once.
Senator Clifford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate my colleague from Lynn looking out for my western Kansas counties that are in Mountain Time. In 2 town halls, I appealed to them to join the rest of us just this weekend. It is a county decision. They take a lot of pride, and they don't have a lot of cross-border issues like you would have in the Kansas City Metro, so I would still be in favor of this bill.
Senator Gossage.
I think if we want the nation to do it, just showing that a state has, I don't know if other states have something similar, but a state just has put into a bill that we would like to do this. And since it's, Missouri may not go until the whole nation does. So I just think that it's a good way of sending a signal, that we're going to do it. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And by the way, I initially thought about, well, what about Colorado? But it's true, on the Missouri side, it's, lots of businesses that are in both Kansas City and Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas. I don't know if we have that. Maybe we do with Nebraska and Oklahoma. But again, I just think it sends the right message, and it's going to sit there until Missouri does. And I don't know that Missouri will do it until everybody else does it.
No, they may not. Any further, Senator Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some food for thought. So we do have not a huge, but a small population of kids in western Kansas that actually go to school in Colorado, just like we have a small population of Colorado kids that go to Kansas schools. So if we do this and Missouri acts, that would be a concern of mine, is they're now operating an hour off, but then they have to go to school across state lines at a different time. So I think that might throw off even the school systems. Just some food for thought.
Senator Gossage?
I have to, when I was in Goodland for a conference recently and was discussing something similar with Senator Billinger, they were talking about the problems that they had with all kinds of things like that, because there are kids that go the other way. And so the parents have to take that into consideration that, oh yeah, they're an hour different. So they kind of already do that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion. Who had, Senator Tyson, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I appreciate the amendment on Missouri, I really don't like Missouri driving our ship. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Any further comments? Seeing that, I have a motion by Senator Francisco. I forgot who the second was by. Senator Starnes, I believe it was. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Appears like the ayes have it. So Senate Bill 1 is heading out. Committee, gosh, this is a tough day. I know. I appreciate everybody's work. I do want to say, even though we're an exempt committee, typically the chances of us meeting again this session are low. I would like to thank you all for your hard work, and I want to thank our staff for their hard work and for their indulgence with my getting lost on some amendments. So with that, thank you so much. We are adjourned.